The forest was silent, then split open by a muffled cry, sharp and ragged, like pain torn from a throat, unwilling to surrender. A leopard's claws scraped wood, sparks of sound biting the darkness. James said, "Dear God, something's caught." His breath hung in cold night air, trembling like his hands. The metallic snap of a steel snare cracked again, cruel and final. Shadows twisted as moonlight painted trees in fractured silver. Emma whispered, "It's suffering." Their voices barely reached each other over the thrum of terror swelling in the air. The creature thrashed, and the ground shook with its defiance, roots snapping beneath its weight. Fear and urgency clashed like fire in their chests. James pressed forward, mud clinging to his boots, every step echoing dread. The leopard's golden eyes flashed like embers in the dark, wild and desperate, pulling them deeper into a storm they couldn't yet see. The forest swallowed their voices as though afraid to echo the creature's pain. James said, "It's worse than I thought." The leopard struck the ground, body convulsing with each failed struggle. Emma whispered, "If we move too fast, we'll drive it mad." The sound of chains grinding against bark scraped their nerves raw. Fear coiled tight in their stomachs, yet they inched forward. The air smelled of wet soil and blood, metallic and heavy. Somewhere in the distance, an owl's call fractured the silence, mocking the urgency. James steadied his breath, though his heart thundered louder than the cries. The beast wasn't just trapped, it was terrified beyond reason, its spirit breaking with each pull of steel. Emma's eyes softened, guilt already weighing her, and she murmured, "We can't let it end like this." The leopard growled, low and guttural, a sound so primal it rooted them to the soil. James whispered, "It knows we're here." The beast snapped its jaws, striking at the chain as though it were prey. Emma clutched her scarf, her body trembling with every vibration of the snare. The flashlight beam flickered against snarled vines, throwing jagged silhouettes across the clearing. The night thickened, the jungle holding its breath, waiting. Fear wasn't abstract anymore. It pressed against their chests with weight. James forced his boots forward, each step sucking into wet ground. His voice cracked with urgency. "We'll only get one chance." The leopard's eyes glared like burning coals, wild but dimming with exhaustion, and in them James saw not menace, but pleading desperation. James lunged for the chain, his glove brushing cold metal before the leopard jerked violently, slamming him back with raw force. Emma shouted, "Stop! You'll get torn apart!" The beast roared, teeth snapping inches from where he fell. Breathless, he rolled onto mud, chest burning. The chain rattled furiously, sparks of sound shredding the quiet. Emma stumbled toward him, eyes wide, pulling him back from the edge. His voice cracked, "We don't have time for fear." The leopard struck again, snarling, body writhing like fire itself. Every motion screamed of pain, not hatred, yet it left no room for mistake. James pushed himself up, sweat and mud mixing across his face, his determination more stubborn than the earth holding them both in place. The leopard collapsed to its side, chest heaving, ribs rising like brittle mountains beneath its skin. James' voice softened, trembling. "It's breaking itself." Emma knelt, eyes brimming with dread, her hand hovering inches above the earth. The chain clattered with faint vibrations, less from fight, more from exhaustion. Shadows swayed like spectators, cruel in their silence. James clenched his jaw, guilt dripping heavier than sweat. The jungle pressed tighter, every sound magnified, the rustle of leaves, the drip of rain forming. Emma whispered, "If we don't act, it'll die right here." Their faces turned toward the suffering animal, their fear reshaped into something sharper. Resolve forged in the fire of desperation, knowing hesitation was no longer an option. James sat back against a tree, his chest still pounding from the chaos. He whispered, "I've seen this before." The words carried pain older than the night itself. Emma leaned close, her eyes searching him, but he kept staring into the clearing. The leopard's muffled whimpers echoed with memories he had buried. Another animal, Another animal. Another failure. Years ago. His hand traced the scar running along his forearm, faint in moonlight, the mark of a rescue gone wrong. Emma asked softly, "You lost one before?" He nodded, breath catching, unwilling to finish the memory. The weight of guilt pressed against his ribs like iron. The leopard struggled again, and his jaw tightened. "I won't let this one die the same way." The words weren't just for Emma. They were a vow carved into the silence, a desperate promise to himself, to the animal, and to a ghost that would never answer back. Emma shifted closer, her voice trembling. "It doesn't understand why it's hurting." She wrapped her scarf tighter, as if holding herself together. James stared at the animal's eyes glowing dimly through the dark fury and fear tangled inside. He muttered, "It's more than pain. It's betrayal." Emma blinked at the word. He pointed to the twisted snare, voice sharp with contempt. "Someone set that trap knowing it would suffer." The weight of his tone cut deeper than the chain. Emma felt her chest tighten, her compassion raw and unguarded. She whispered, "We can't just be careful, we have to care." His head turned, the steel in his gaze softening for the first time. In that fragile pause, the bond was forged, not between rescuer and victim, but between two souls unwilling to let cruelty win again. The leopard groaned, and the sound pulled them back into urgency, sealing their shared resolve. The silence broke with a sickening rattle. The chain, buried in roots, had sunk deeper into the leopard's paw. Emma gasped, stepping forward, but James blocked her. "Wait, too close," he warned, his tone sharp. She bristled. "If we keep waiting, it'll bleed out." The first obstacle wasn't the trap. It was their own fear colliding with time. James knelt, studying the angle of the snare, sweat beading at his temples. "We'll need cutters, thick gloves, and ropes to hold him steady," he muttered, more to himself. Emma shook her head, voice cracking. "We don't have that kind of time." The leopard groaned, body shivering under strain. Their eyes met, desperation mirrored in both. The problem wasn't tools or distance. It was deciding if the risk of moving too soon was worth the life fading in front of them. Every second lost scraped like sand against bone. Emma's voice broke. "We can't keep standing here watching." James turned, frustration burning in his eyes. "Do you think I want to?" The air between them tightened, tension snapping like brittle branches. Emma pressed on, voice shaking. "You're waiting for certainty, but there won't be any. Not tonight." His fists clenched, mud streaking his gloves. For a heartbeat, silence swallowed them. Only the leopard's labored breathing filling the space. Emma's gaze softened. "If we don't try, then the trap wins. The cruelty wins." James lowered his eyes, breath ragged, and for the first time he let the shield of control crack. He whispered, "If this goes wrong, it's on me." Emma shook her head, stepping closer. "No, it's on both of us." That small truth flickered like light against the dark, fragile yet strong enough to hold them steady. The chain rattled again, the leopard thrashing weakly before collapsing into a trembling heap. James' heart cracked at the sound, more unbearable than its roars. Emma whispered, "This isn't just survival, it's dignity." The words pierced him, echoing truths he'd buried. His scar burned as if memory itself clawed back to the surface. He crouched low, voice steady but pained. "We'll save it, not just because we can, but because no life deserves this end." Emma's eyes glistened, the fire of compassion pushing past fear. The bond between them and the creature was no longer fragile, it was unbreakable. They weren't rescuers anymore. They were guardians standing against the cruelty of a world that had already failed this animal once. The jungle watched, silent witness to a vow that bound them to the fight ahead. The leopard staggered forward, the snare grinding deeper, blood darkening its paw. James muttered, "It's getting worse." Emma flinched as the animal groaned, its body shivering under strain. The jungle was no longer still. It pulsed with dread. The air grew heavier, carrying the smell of iron and damp earth. James knelt, examining the wound with frantic eyes. If infection sets in, we'll lose him. His voice cracked against the silence. Emma's hands pressed to her mouth, tears blurring her sight. The beast's growls shifted, not fierce but weary, its strength bleeding into the soil. James whispered, "We're racing a clock we can't see." The truth cut deeper than the chain. Time itself had turned predator, stalking both man and animal alike. Thunder cracked across the jungle, splitting the sky. Emma looked up as rain began to fall, thick and sudden, turning soil to sludge. James growled, "The storm will trap us." The flashlight flickered in his hand as drops hissed against its lens. Moon. The leopard flinched, its wounds washing crimson streams into the mud. The air thickened with the storm's roar, every sound drowned beneath the drumming rain. Emma whispered, "We'll lose the trail out." James scanned the trees, lightning exposing twisted paths like veins. "If we stay too long, we're cut off." The storm wasn't just weather, it was a wall closing in. The jungle itself seemed to conspire against them, demanding a price for every step they dared to take. Voices broke the storm. Torches flickered through the trees as locals emerged, eyes hard, words sharp. James stood, chest heaving, whispering to Emma, "They don't want us here." A man barked, "Leave it. That animal brings danger." The leopard snarled weakly, the chain rattling. Emma stepped forward, voice shaking. "It's dying, you'd let it suffer." The men sneered, muttering curses. James placed himself between Emma and the torches, his shadow stretched tall in the lightning flash. "We're not leaving." The tension crackled hotter than the storm. Fear, anger, and desperation clashed in the clearing, each torch flame reflecting in the leopard's haunted eyes, making the rescue more than survival. It was defiance against indifference. The storm raged louder, but the louder war was within. James' hands trembled on the chain. "If we cut it, we're breaking the law." Emma snapped, "Law didn't put this trap here, cruelty did." He froze, the words cutting. The leopard groaned, its breathing shallow, fading. James whispered, "If they catch us freeing it, we'll be finished." Emma's eyes burned, her voice like steel. "If we walk away, we already are." The choice hung heavy, law against compassion, fear against dignity. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his decision. The storm was no longer the only threat. It was James' conscience, tearing him between duty and the fragile life tethered to the ground. Rain hammered the earth as James and Emma's voices rose, clashing like thunder itself. "We can't stay," he barked. Emma shouted back, "We can't leave." The leopard whimpered, each sound a blade slicing their resolve. James turned, anger flaring, but in Emma's eyes he saw not defiance, only the same fear he carried. The storm drenched them both, washing away pretense until only truth remained. James whispered, "If I lose this one too, I won't come back from it." Emma's hand caught his arm, steady, unyielding. "Then we won't lose him." For a fleeting moment, they stood together, broken yet united, as the leopard shivered in the mud. The jungle shook with storm and silence alike, a reminder that their time was slipping fast. James pulled at the chain's root when his glove struck something buried beneath the mud. He froze, scraping the soil away. Emma leaned closer, whispering, "What is it?" A rusted tag glinted under his torchlight, attached to the chain. James' breath hitched as he read the inscription. "Property of." His voice faltered, eyes narrowing at the stamped letters. This wasn't a wild trap. This was ownership. Emma gasped, horror swelling in her chest. It belonged to someone. The leopard moaned, body twitching in weak defiance. James clenched the tag, fury burning behind his eyes. This wasn't an accident. This was captivity. The jungle's silence broke under thunder, but inside them both, the revelation thundered louder. This creature had not simply stumbled into cruelty, it had been delivered to it. Emma whispered, "It was chained before. This isn't the wild's doing." Her voice trembled, heavy with disgust. James nodded, jaw tight. "Someone kept it. Someone let it suffer. The leopard's labored breath was the only answer. Emma's hands shook as she pressed them to her scarf. This wasn't fate, it was cruelty planned. James' eyes narrowed toward the trees, as if seeing ghosts. He muttered, "That's why it doesn't trust, it remembers." The storm howled through branches, echoing their horror. What they thought was a rescue against chance had shifted into a battle against deliberate evil. Emma wiped tears from her cheeks, whispering, "We're not just saving its life. We're undoing someone's crime." James' silence was ironclad, the vow unspoken yet carved into the night. The storm rattled, but James' silence was louder. He crouched by the leopard, voice rough. "I knew this look before." Emma's brows knit tight. "What do you mean?" He pulled back his sleeve, exposing the scar along his forearm. "It wasn't just an accident years ago. It was a cage, same as this." Emma gasped, piecing together the truth he had buried. His past wasn't just loss. It was survival from cruelty that mirrored tonight. James said, "I swore I'd never face this again." His voice cracked, raw and unguarded. Emma touched his scar lightly, whispering, "That's why you can't walk away." His jaw set hard, eyes fixed on the broken beast before him. The storm didn't just test them now. It revealed the ghosts he had carried all along. Torches flared again through the rain. The locals stepped closer, their voices sharper. One snarled, "That's not a wild beast, that's a pet gone loose." Emma's stomach turned at the word. James barked back, "A pet? That's no pet, it's a prisoner." The men sneered, spitting in the mud. "It belonged to someone powerful. Leave it." Lightning split the sky, illuminating faces carved with fear and greed. Emma shouted, "Whoever owned it did this?" Silence followed, thicker than the storm. James' chest heaved, fury barely contained. The leopard's eyes flickered toward them, pain mirrored with betrayal. The hidden truth had teeth sharper than the trap. This wasn't nature versus man, but man versus man. Cruelty masquerading as ownership. The storm eased for a heartbeat, the clearing glowing silver under the moon. James whispered, almost to himself, "It was never just about saving it." Emma's eyes shimmered, her voice raw. "It's about fighting what broke it." The leopard lifted its head weakly, golden eyes dull but alive, staring at them with something more than instinct, something that knew betrayal. James clenched his fists, teeth grinding. "This isn't just rescue. It's justice." Emma nodded, her fear folding into defiance. Together they stood taller, the storm bending around them. The truth had shifted the battlefield. It wasn't survival against nature anymore. It was defiance against cruelty crafted by human hands. And in that moment, the rescue became personal, binding their fight to a vow far heavier than chains. The leopard jerked upright, muscles coiled with desperate fury, snapping jaws striking the air. James staggered back, shouting, "It's fighting us, not the chain." Emma cried, "It doesn't know the difference." The beast's roar ripped through the jungle, louder than thunder, drowning their fear with its own. Chains rattled violently, metal grinding into flesh, blood scattering across the mud. James raised his hands, palms out, voice trembling, "Easy, we're here to help." But the animal lunged again, claws tearing soil inches from his boots. Emma shouted his name, dragging him back, her own heart pounding louder than the storm. The leopard's defiance was not anger but survival, the final reserve of a creature that refused to surrender. Every second stretched like a blade between salvation and disaster. The beast lunged again, chain snapping taut with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. James stumbled, his boot sliding in mud, the leopard's claws swiping past his thigh. Emma screamed, her voice breaking as she yanked him back by his jacket. James collapsed, mud caking his face, breath ragged. The leopard roared, staggering but relentless, eyes burning with wild fire. Emma knelt beside James, trembling. "You're hurt?" He shook his head, spitting soil, voice sharp, "Not yet." The chain rattled again, and he forced himself upright. "We have one chance. Either we take it now, or we all bleed out here." Emma stared at him, rain streaking her face like tears. Their fear was real, but so was the resolve hardening inside both. James tore off his satchel, pulling free a rusted pair of cutters. His hands shook as he gripped the chain, muscles taut with terror. Emma's voice cracked. "You'll lose your hand." He snapped back. "Better my hand than its life." The leopard roared, snapping jaws inches from his face, breath hot and foul. James pressed the cutter, metal straining, sparks of effort burning through his arms. The chain resisted like iron from the earth itself. Emma's hands gripped his shoulders, steadying him, whispering, "Don't stop. Don't you dare stop." Rain cascaded around them, each drop blurring vision, every heartbeat louder than thunder. The beast's body writhed, mud exploding beneath its strength, but James' jaw locked tight. He whispered, through clenched teeth, "We're not leaving you here." The cutter screeched as metal bent, the sound piercing through storm and roars alike. James cried out, his muscles burning. The leopard convulsed, blood pooling at its paw, but its strength surged again, body flinging against him. Emma screamed, pulling James back as claws grazed his jacket, tearing fabric open. He stumbled but didn't let go. "Almost there," he shouted, voice breaking with strain. The chain groaned, snapping strands like brittle bone. Emma's eyes widened, rain streaking across her pale face. "Do it, James." The leopard's golden eyes locked on his, wild but flickering with something else, trust clawing its way through pain. James gritted his teeth, shoulders shaking, as the storm seemed to bow to the final desperate strike. The cutter gave way with a shattering snap, chain fragments scattering into the mud. For a breath, silence held. The storm muted, the jungle frozen. The leopard staggered, paw free but trembling, blood soaking into the ground. James collapsed onto his knees, chest heaving, cutters slipping from his hands. Emma dropped beside him, her arms wrapping his shoulders, whispering, "You did it." The leopard growled. But it was weaker now, its eyes no longer burning with hatred, only hollow exhaustion. James raised his gaze to the animal, voice raw. "You're free, don't waste it." For one fragile second, the clearing was nothing but breath, rain, and the bond of three broken souls fighting against the weight of cruelty and fear. The storm faded into a steady drizzle, leaving the jungle washed in silver. James slumped in the mud, chest rising slowly, eyes fixed on the freed leopard. Emma knelt beside him, whispering, "It's still alive." The leopard staggered, paw trembling as it pressed against the softened ground. Blood pooled darkly, but freedom gave it a fragile strength. James rasped, "We bought it time." His words carried both triumph and dread, knowing survival was no guarantee. Emma's hand brushed his sleeve, her voice breaking, "You didn't fail this one." The air smelled of rain and iron, sharp yet cleansing. For the first time, silence felt less cruel, like the jungle was listening instead of judging. The battle was over, but the fight for meaning had just begun. The leopard limped a few paces, its sides heaving, then collapsed again with a low groan. Emma cried softly, "It can't stand." James forced himself upright, each muscle screaming. "It needs time, not chains." He stepped closer, careful, his boots sinking in mud. The animal's eyes met his, golden and dim, holding defiance but no malice. For a heartbeat, predator and man breathed in rhythm. James whispered, "You're free. No one owns you anymore." The words broke something inside him, releasing years of buried weight. Emma's voice shook as she said, "We gave it a chance." That truth was heavy, but enough to hold them. The jungle sighed under the fading storm, carrying away the echoes of cruelty, leaving only fragile hope behind. Emma crouched low, her voice trembling. "What if it doesn't make it?" James glanced at her, rain dripping from his brow, eyes hollow yet determined. Then, at least it wasn't in chains. The words echoed like a verdict. Emma brushed mud from her knees, watching the leopard breathe shallowly, every rise of its chest a fragile victory. She whispered, "It's more than saving lives, isn't it?" James nodded, scars catching moonlight. "It's about refusing cruelty, even when you can't erase it." The jungle around them stirred, distant calls piercing the night, as if life itself was reclaiming its rhythm. For the first time, Emma's tears carried not just grief but pride. Their struggle had left scars, but it had also carved meaning into the silence. The storm clouds drifted, leaving a clear slice of sky where stars pierced through. Emma lifted her face toward the heavens, whispering, "It feels like it's listening." James followed her gaze, chest still heaving, whispering, "It always listens. We just don't." The leopard shifted, lifting its head weakly, eyes glinting under starlight. It was a fragile moment of connection, a thread between worlds that rarely touched. Emma pressed her hand to the soil, voice soft. "We carry the weight, not just for it, but for all we couldn't save." James closed his eyes, nodding with the gravity of memory. The clearing glowed in quiet reverence, no longer a battlefield, but a shrine to survival, and the fragile grace of resistance. The rain stopped entirely, leaving the air fresh and heavy with earth. The leopard closed its eyes, chest still rising, body curled against the mud like a broken king reclaiming breath. James whispered, "This is what hope looks like. It doesn't roar. It breathes." Emma touched his shoulder, her voice gentle. "And it keeps breathing because you didn't stop." James' eyes glistened, not from rain. He let himself feel a relief he had denied for years. The silence pressed close, but now it carried weight without cruelty. In that moment, loss and survival lived side by side, not as opposites but as truth. Emma whispered, "We can leave knowing we gave it back what mattered." James nodded, every scar inside finally answered by the fragile heartbeat of hope. The clearing settled into stillness, the storm long gone, replaced by the quiet hum of crickets. James sat in the mud, shoulders slumped, eyes locked on the leopard's faint breathing. Emma whispered, "We made it this far." The jungle smelled fresh, like rain cleansing wounds both old and new. James brushed his scar unconsciously, his voice low. "It didn't die in chains. That matters." The animal stirred, groaning softly, its paw twitching as if testing its fragile freedom. Moonlight spilled across its battered body, painting it as both victim and survivor. Emma leaned closer, her hand resting lightly on James' back. "Oh, this moment is enough," she murmured, and though neither fully believed it, the silence made it feel true. The leopard stirred again, its head lifting slowly. Golden eyes caught the moonlight, dull but alive. James whispered, "It still wants to live." His words carried awe, not command. Emma pressed a trembling hand to her chest, whispering, "Then we've done what we came for." The jungle exhaled around them, every rustle and chirp reminding them of life continuing beyond their fight. James leaned forward, voice softer. "The wild doesn't forget, but maybe it forgives." The leopard blinked, gaze lingering on him, then lowered its head to the earth. It was not surrender, but trust, fragile, fleeting, but real. Emma's eyes glistened with tears, the kind born not of grief, but of reverence. Emma's eyes drifted upward, stars sharp against a cloudless sky. "Somewhere, someone who never made it here is watching," she whispered. James followed her gaze, the weight of absence pressing on him. "The ones we lost stay with us," he said, voice steady but cracked. The jungle breeze carried faint scents of damp leaves and distant flowers, a quiet offering to memory. The leopard shifted, exhaling a sound that felt like acknowledgement. Emma smiled faintly through tears. Maybe this was for them too. James reached for her hand, mud smeared and shaking, and she didn't pull away. For a moment, grief and grace intertwined, binding their present to every shadow they had carried. The leopard groaned, shifting its body upright with effort, paw dragging but free. Emma gasped softly, "It's standing." James rose too, mud dripping from his clothes, eyes fixed on the creature. "It's not beaten," he whispered, awe in his tone. The jungle parted with faint rustles, as if holding its breath. Golden eyes scanned them both one last time, fierce yet softened by fragile trust. James' fists unclenched, and his voice dropped. "Go, if you can." The leopard limped forward, each step labored but defiant, moving toward shadows that belonged to it. Emma pressed her palms together as if in prayer, her voice a hushed vow, may it never see chains again. The leopard disappeared into the trees, its form swallowed by darkness, leaving only silence behind. James stood motionless, his breath caught, the night air suddenly colder without the beast's presence. Emma whispered, "It's gone." Her voice cracked but carried peace. James closed his eyes, every scar and every ghost quieted for the first time. "We set it free," he said, more to himself than her. The jungle was still, no applause, no reward. Only the weight of what mattered. Emma's hand found his again, their silence shared. Above them, stars blazed brighter, as if the world had taken note of the final heartbeat of this night. The story wasn't victory, it was remembrance, carried forward in every step they took away from the clearing.